We've been on the topic of childhood sexual abuse and the adult consequences, right, that come around that. And within that space, I often get asked, right, how do we warn our children without sending them into the world afraid, right? And I understand. And, my response is, we do put our children in a metal box and put them on the highway, going 70 miles an hour with other people, and we do that instilling a level of awareness, right, versus fear. And it's that same energy, right? Your child is going to be upset by information if you're upset in talking about it, right? And your child is going to be afraid if you're afraid, And, often, a response is like, yeah, but they're too young for that information, right? And what's real and true is the lack of information is perpetuating these cycles. It's perpetuating these cycles, right? My youngest daughter, and, I was, a product of childhood sexual abuse and violence. And, I was adamant against, right, the collective of people around me, that my children were clear and that they had words to describe their experience, because that's often a problem too, right? If we don't talk with them about it, they don't have words to put with the experience, right? So that being said, church of all places, she talks me into going to childcare rather than the service. And on that day, I said yes. She was 3 years old. She had words, and, what's real is that she was almost kidnapped that night out of the childcare and was sexually violated, right? And she came right out of that building. She knew what to do. She knew what not to do, right? He kept trying to get her out of the room and she would not go, right? She was 3 years old and she maneuvered that situation and kept herself safe because she had words and information, right? She walks right out to me, Mommy, right? Blah, 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 blah. This is what happened. Right? This man kept trying to take me, and he was touching in front of me, right? And kept her on his lap. All these things, right? And she had the words to say that. And because she had the words to say that, right? The man ended up in jail that night. And she got to identify him. So something we have to really recognize is that the incident isn't always the problem. It's what we choose to do with it. And I'm very grateful that day that, her dad was so important, supportive in creating action, instant action. There was no question. Right? There was no, oh, are you sure? No, right? He started chasing that man and he ended up in jail, right? So, and what is the most beautiful part of that is today, if you ask her, right? She would say, oh, weird, I forget that happened to me, right? When I wrote my first book, Chronicles of Tigwa, right? And I was making all these connections and, connecting dots between experience, right? I approached her and said, do you mind if I share that? And she said, yeah, it's weird. I don't feel like that really happened to me. That was I forget about it. What a thought. What a thought, right? Us depriving our children of information is putting them in harm's way, right? So let's be clear. Them having the information, them knowing that it's safe, that you're safe to come back to with the information, right, can stop these cycles, and they can stop.